Okay, why don't we get started this morning? My name is Danny Seabright. I'm president of the US-UAE Business Council. Welcome everyone to today's webinar about the future of the UAE's real estate sector. This is part of the Business Council's Back to Business webinar series that we launched in September. And today's actually the last big session that we will host this year for this series of webinars on the business verticals and sectors. I could not be more delighted to be joined today on this virtual stage with three of the UAE's leading executives in this area, from Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Sharjah. We are pleased to have over 250 registered guests for today's webinar, comprising business executives, government officials, and UAE-based real estate consultants and lawyers. Excuse me. I would also like to acknowledge that officials from the U.S. mission to the UAE in both Abu Dhabi and Dubai are joining us today, as well as officials from the UAE consulate in New York and the UAE embassy in Washington, D.C. We also have journalists from Bloomberg and the Financial Times who will be on the webinar today. It will be recorded and it will be circulated after the session in our usual Business Council updates series. As I said, this session is on the record and we will have it on YouTube later today. If folks have questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens to send those questions to me and the panelists. We will start with a few minutes of introduction by each panelist and then we will move to Q&A. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Talal Al-Diaby, Chief Executive Officer at Alda Properties in Abu Dhabi, which is the largest property developer in the United Arab Emirates. Talal previously held the positions of Chief Development Officer and Executive Director of Asset Management following the merger with Saria in 2013. Talal serves on the boards of numerous companies, including Abu Dhabi Motorsport Management, Miral Asset Management, Alda Education, and Sanduq Al Watan, the UAE's national fund focused on contributions. After Talal, we will have His Excellency Hussein Sajwani, founder and chairman of Damac Properties, and His Excellency Marwan bin Jassim Al Sarkal, executive chairman, Sharjah Investment and Development Authority, or otherwise known as Shurut. With that, Talal, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Danny. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. I hope you're all well and safe, along with your families and loved ones. Thank you for tuning in to this webinar where we hope to give you an insight as the US-UAE Business Council on the real estate industry in the United Arab Emirates. As Danny mentioned, I'm joined by some esteemed panelists. His Excellency Hussein, His Excellency Marwan will also share their insights into this market. If I was to describe 2020 in one word, I'd say it's a year of resilience. We entered the year with a high level of uncertainty from a health perspective, from an economic perspective, from a political perspective, and in some places of the world. And as we're concluding 2020, and despite some of these unprecedented challenges, I think the world has come together quite well, especially on the back of recent positive news, be it about the vaccine or about economic recovery generally around the globe. So we're concluding this year and entering 2021 on a much more positive note. Here in the United Arab Emirates, the leadership has done a remarkable job, both from a health perspective and an economic perspective. They took very timely and decisive action to keep the people safe, well ahead of many other nations, with a very, very controlled measures, and at the same time, kept their eye on the ball in terms of the economy, keeping the banking system solid with liquidity, focusing on the private sector, on SMEs, and trying to stabilize the job situation, which is the core pillar of any particular industry. Thanks to these solid partnerships, working together, collaboration across both the public and private sector, as a company, we've been able to deliver our promise to our stakeholders, shareholders, employees, and our society in general. We've had to take our own measures as an organization. We launched a stimulus program of our own of around $50 million to basically support our home buyers, parents at our schools, our retailers, our supply chain, to make sure that the entire ecosystem was able to weather the storm, and we would all come out of this much stronger. I think everyone has adapted relatively well. I think there's going to be many lessons learned as a result of this pandemic. We are in a much more optimistic phase from being cautiously optimistic a few months ago. There are still areas that we need to work on harder. For us, it's really been about 3 pillars, which we'll talk on later: our people, our customers, and sustainability, which we see as 3 pillars for any partnership or any organization to be able to come out of this in a much stronger perspective, and particularly here in the UAE and in Abu Dhabi. And I look forward to an engaging discussion and answering a lot of questions that you have and fostering many new partnerships, both here and abroad. With that, I'll hand back over to Danny.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Talal. And again, to remind the audience, if you would please send any questions you might have through the chat and Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. With that, I would now very, very much like to introduce, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a colleague and a man who's become a friend and who's just a titan in the industry and what he does, and also a close and long-standing supporter of the Business Council. Mr. Hussein Sajwani, who is the founder and chairman of Damac Properties. In 2002, Mr. Sajwani established Damac Properties, which has grown to become one of the largest development companies in the region and a brand that is synonymous with luxury. Today, the company has a wide variety of prestigious projects in important global cities such as Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, and London, just to name a few. These projects include the Trump International Golf Club in Dubai, and I should note that Mr. Sajwani is not just a prominent businessman, but also an important thought leader as well. Mr. Sajwani, it gives me great pleasure to offer the floor to you for your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks a lot. And I really thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in such a esteemed organization and those beautiful people. Talal have covered quite a lot about what the UAE government has done in the last 9 months. And it's amazing, Danny, as you see, Dubai has come from every crisis stronger and stronger. And I've seen from childhood the Iranian war, and then the war to free Kuwait, and the war to overthrow Saddam, and another dozen crises like that which Dubai have seen. 9 months ago, honestly, I never thought Dubai going to recover so quick. And I was saying Dubai going to go through the economy and the property market going to go through a tough time. The way the city has recovered is amazing. The way they have done the lockdown, the way they have opened gradually. Today, the hotels have more than 90% occupancy. Some hotels refusing to take tourism. I saw a video last night of the airport. Never see such a crowded airport in Dubai in the last 10 years. The queues are all over on the immigration. So Dubai government has an amazing job. Property market in Dubai, as you appreciate, and I said earlier, has gone through difficult time in 2019 because of oversupply. And the oversupply started in 2018 and continued in 2019 in a very aggressive way. If there is a silver line in 2020, if there's any good news, that the supply almost stopped because of Corona. Everybody most of the companies, or at least the companies who were doing a lot of supply, they stopped the supply. So that's a good news. But I still don't think the market gonna see a major recovery and prices correcting upward in 2021. I think 2021 gonna be year of consolidation. I don't see prices dropping further. I see the good news, there is a demand, and especially on the villas. Also, the interesting part, there is a lot of demand from the top end of the market for high ticket items. So we see demand on $1 million homes up to $10 million homes. There is a lot of wealthy people from Europe, from India, from CIS, particularly Russia, coming, want to reside in Dubai. I know a number of them have called me and they're moving their homes. They feel Dubai more safe and they feel Dubai more, vibrant and more taking action. The crisis come faster and recover better. So that's good news from tourist point of view, from some of the residents who are coming to Dubai. Last week, the decision of Dubai or the UAE government to allow foreigners to own 100% is a major decision, which I think it has not been marketed, in my view, properly. Danny, we've been looking in Damak some time for some of our foreign companies, like Cavalli and a few other things that we have globally, where to create a tax-free haven residence for those holding companies. And we struggle to find one other than Dubai, because you have Luxembourg and you have Ireland and you have Singapore, but they all have taxation as low as 12% and as high as 18%. Dubai was zero taxes. Foreigners, the biggest challenge was you could not own a company 100%. And today you can own a 100% company in Dubai with zero tax. I think that will open a huge amount of investments, doors for law firms, for companies, for holding companies, and so forth. So I'm very, very excited about that decision. No question, no doubt, the property market is facing its challenges in the last 2 years. On the other end, I think is a beautiful market for buyers. Today, you can buy the best place, the best address, the best location at a cheaper than the replacement cost in Dubai. The bad news is, in my view, developers will barely make any margin. I'm not talking about government companies who get certain, advantage or benefits or, recurring income, whatever their business model is very different. But private companies, development companies will continue to struggle to make a profit. But the customers will benefit at least for the coming number of years from low prices and severe competition and good payment plans. And private companies, especially like us, we're focusing more on technology, more on customer happiness, more on delivering things, on time, fixing the in-house. We spent a lot of time and money in the last 9 months to fix the in-house. So that's my view on the market of the property market of Dubai. I think we're going to have a major challenge in the offices. Offices already were in a very bad shape. Some of the rents in Dubai were as low as $10 per square feet per year, not per month, per year. Where in a city like, example, London or New York is $100. And now it's going to be worse because a lot of people are still going to do work from home and all that COVID impact. Sorry, Dan, I don't have all good news.
Mr. Sajwani, I can always count on you, though, to tell it like it is. You've given us a lot to unpack, which I want to come back to in the Q&A for sure. One thing I am going to emphasize right now with regard to the reform effort in the UAE, you always stay one step ahead of everyone else in the region, and you always make the UAE the most desirable desirable place in the region that folks want to come and invest in the first instance. And that's clear from the 100% ownership law that was just enacted a few weeks ago. So we'll come back to that and a few other points that you made, very important points. I want to give a dear friend, His Excellency Marwan bin Jassim Al Circle, Executive Chairman of Shuruk, a chance to say a few words. Marwan told me just before he came on that actually you announced in the news overnight that the airport, as you said, Mr. Sejwani, is incredibly busy, and that by December 11th, the expectation is that you're going to be coming up to, again in Dubai Airport, to 200,000 visitors a day, which is an amazing figure, and underscores the efforts that your governments have taken, your government and your local governments have taken to deal with COVID locally. But Marwan, also, I think it was your birthday a couple of weeks ago or 10 days or so ago. So we also have to wish you a happy birthday before you speak.
Thank you.
Marwan,
that's a surprise.
Marwan has played, well, that's the beauty of Facebook and social media, Marwan, right? We know when each other's birthdays are. In any event, Marwan has played, His Excellency has played an instrumental role in the economic development of Sharjah, including in the real estate sector, and is just an amazing asset for the US-UAE trade and economic relationship. He's led major developments and projects by Shuruk covering tourism, real estate, logistics, light manufacturing, healthcare, and education, and has contributed immensely to the Emirate of Sharjah's ongoing success story. Marwan has brought a number of delegations to visit the United States and travel across the United States with us, with the Business Council in the last number of years. And we really look to 2021, Your Excellency, to be a year when we're going to restart that process. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Danny. Assalamu alaikum to everyone, wherever you are tuned in here. I think having a topic with US-UAE Business Council as the future of UAE real estate sector shows and means a lot to us. It's the last webinar, I would say, by 2020, a year that has been a very different year than we've ever experienced. And I think what both of my colleagues, His Excellency Talal or His Excellency Hussein, has mentioned about the economy and how the UAE government have responded to that shows how we were actually on the right track. And we see it from our economy, we see it from the business, we see it from the number of things going up rather than going down, from the openness of doing business, but from the openness of even traveling and enjoying your time here in the United Arab Emirates. The great thing about the US-UAE Business Council is that we are straightforward with people. We give everyone that tunes in the information, the correct information about different sectors of our economy. And today, when we speak about real estate is one of the backbones of the United Arab Emirates economy. Then the uniqueness about it that every emirate has a different positioning. When Sharjah is focusing on culture and education and innovation and real estate in a sort of way and sustainability, we have Dubai focusing on the financial sector, for example, and Abu Dhabi is working on international arts, I would say. So the unique thing about the United Arab Emirates is how we do different things through the different 7 emirates. What we saw in 2020 is something that means a lot to us, how the government stood very strongly by backing up the private sector in a way. We in Shuruk has seen one of the sectors moving dramatically on the other side. When things are going down, we were going up, and we're talking about the tourism sector. When people were not really able to travel for a long time, they have been experiencing the United Arab Emirates, and whether it's a different landscape from the mountains to the sand dunes. Our hotel business has been doing really well. Occupancy has skyrocketing to the 100%. Real estate, by the way, in Sharjah has been rebounded extremely. We are 10% higher than last year, which basically is a very good number. Different nationality, as Mr. Hussein has mentioned, we have the UAE is a market for everyone. So it's not only for the Emiratis, but in Sharjah, for example, 47 nationalities has been dealing with the real estate sector. We have opened a new law that for the first time in Sharjah that the non-Arabs can actually have a 100-year lease that opened up the real estate market dramatically. And we've started to create more developments into real estate. So the Sharjah Sustainable City has created an opportunity for people looking at sustainability in a point, but also looking at an opportunity to buy their own houses. But also we have tried to push developers like Majid Al Fataim to come and invest in Sharjah into real estate sector. Prince Khalid bin Walid coming and investing in Sharjah, and that shows a lot. And most of those developments are actually handed over either this year or the coming year. So that's a huge development in Sharjah. The new research and technology park and the new Sharjah Media City has created a good exposure for Sharjah, that we focus on innovation, technology, research, but also on media. And the new law, as Mr. Hussein has mentioned, about giving foreign investors the 100% ownership is going to have an impact by 2021. And I think the new peace agreement between the United Arab Emirates and Israel is going to open a different market for us. We've started seeing Israeli tourists coming to the United Arab Emirates, coming through Dubai airport or Abu Dhabi airport. And we've seen the first batch of tourists coming to Mleha in the middle of the desert. And this shows how with peace, our economy can always grow. With peace, we can look forward for a great future by 2021. What I can say is in Shuruq, we encourage investors to come and look at those opportunities in the Emirate of Sharjah into different sectors. Real estate is a big sector. We have focused on developing, as I said, the Sharjah Sustainable City with Diamond Developer, and another development with Eagle Hills called the Mariam Island development, which we are actually handing over by early 2021. And we haven't seen any cancellation with the number that we can say is an issue. The users that have actually received their first units are actually happy with what they have received. And I think this is a great sign that, exactly as mentioned by my colleagues, it's the right time to actually invest into real estate. And that's what we've been seeing in the past weeks, I would say.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Very much appreciated. Let's turn to the Q&A, and we've gotten a few questions in already. If I could ask participants on the call if they would like to send questions, to please do so. I'm going to start though with some that we've sort of kicked around and talked about with my team, and I'm going to start with Talal in Abu Dhabi at Aldar. And Mr. Sajwani and Your Excellency, if you have anything you want to comment on what Talal says after he speaks, please do so. But Talal, from the perspective of an Abu Dhabi-based developer, can you say a little bit more about the real estate sector in Abu Dhabi, and what trends have you seen over the past year? And what do you foresee for the future? I think Mr. Sajwani touched on the office space issue. Around the world, as a result of the pandemic, as a result of these forums that we're on right now, like Zoom, people aren't going to come back to the office again. The way they were in the office before. I'm not saying that offices are going to go away. Of course they're not. But the demand for office space is going to be very different in the future. Can you talk about some of those trends, Talal, from your perspective at Aldar?
Sure. So, I want to start by saying one of the things about the real estate sector in Abu Dhabi is that the government does not believe that the real estate sector per se is one of the key economic pillars. The government has been investing in job creation. That job creation in the fields of education, healthcare, infrastructure, tourism, aviation, obviously oil and gas with ADNOC, but more recently with renewables. We're now seeing a move into technology and agri-tech and food security, and those things create jobs. As we've started to see consolidation in the banking sector and other areas, we're starting to see new jobs being created in other areas. The ENEC with our safe nuclear program going live at the moment. The real estate sector then responds to that very real demand. That's why the situation in Abu Dhabi from a demand and supply perspective at the Abu Dhabi level remains much more balanced. We have pockets of oversupply in some areas. We have seen some rental corrections in others, but the market remains healthier. I think it's also a factor of very, very strong accountability between the public and private sector. So there's one clear national sector champion, of which we are in the private sector. the government is not building commercial or government-related entities building commercial developments here in Abu Dhabi, which helps stabilize the situation with a very, very clear urban plan by 2030. I think more recently, when we talked about stimulus and the corporate ownership and free registration, residency, which I saw one of the questions that people are asking, all of which are key initiatives that the government is pushing for. Now, on the other front, after we move to those market fundamentals, with what Mr. Sajwani raised is office space, I think is very important. As you can see, I'm very comfortable working from my house. I wouldn't say the same thing about how comfortable my wife is me working at home for the last 9 months, but that's a slightly different matter to deal with. I forgot that you said this is all recorded, so I hope that doesn't make its way back to her. I think the success of working from home has been because we worked so well and had intimate, constructive, collaborative environments at the office, which makes working from home easier. I don't think people are not going to go back to the office, but I think the way offices work is going to be different. We're going to have much more co-working spaces, much more collaborative areas where we're still going to need to meet face-to-face. So traditional office owners will have to change. In residential, people are looking for flexibility. They're looking for shorter terms, whether it's not only payment plans of paying monthly. Some people don't want to commit for a year. They want to commit on a shorter basis, have something furnished or serviced. With retail, yes, there is a rise of e-commerce, but does that mean that we're not going to have shopping malls? Particularly in this region, shopping malls are not just for shopping. They're a lifestyle element where people go in and interact. But with that, we're going to see the size and configuration of retail different. How e-commerce has impacted fashion is very different to how it's impacting cosmetics and jewelry and F&B. So the smart developers are ones that need to be able to respond in a very agile way to the market in each one of those sectors, which are all being disrupted, whether by technology or by customer trends. For us in Aldar, one of the things that really helps us a lot, is two things. One, we're both a developer and an asset manager. So because we actually own shopping malls and residential communities and office buildings and hotels that we manage, that gives us a very good insight. We're not just buying and selling for it to become someone else's problem. So we have a very vested interest in how the market performs. The other one is investing in data. Today, we live in a world where data is the new oil. So really understanding your customer and the trend and being ahead of the game is the art of the game, whether it's in real estate or any other sector that you're in. It's cyclical. We are seeing strong signs of recovery, and that's why we remain quite bullish 2021 and beyond.
Thank you, Talal. Just real quickly before we leave Aldar, I mean, in mid-November, Aldar Properties posted an 8% rise in the third quarter net profit. I'm sure you're going to tell us that that's a little bit about what you said earlier in your comments, the connection that you have to Abu Dhabi demand in these new business verticals. But in that regard, you also took over management of several government capital projects worth $8.2 billion as part of an agreement with holding company ADQ. We also, the Business Council, has a great relationship with ADQ. And I'm just curious if you can tie those two together a little bit and talk to us about your great rise in profit for the third quarter and this new relationship with ADQ and how that's going to impact the bottom line.
Thanks, Danny. So, I mean, we had a very strong third quarter. We are seeing a very strong recovery in key sectors like retail from where we were from a footfall perspective post the lockdown in March and April. That was probably the toughest period for everyone, to where we were in September. But the real story was the rise in our development business, where we actually started to see investors who didn't travel this year, who actually saved, on spending, came back, who decided, some went into the equities market, but some decided to come back and invest in real estate. Coupled, obviously, with very strong promotions, us going out, really trying to create value for our very strong high net worth investor base. So that really generated for us some very, very strong performance in Q3. Post Q3, we actually took a very bold move of launching a brand new development that actually got sold out on the first day, generating around $300 million worth of sales on a project that's to be delivered in 2023, where we hit a new price point in one of our key destinations, Yas Island. That's the key leisure. Now, what you talked about is the management contracts that we've also taken are also something that's very important. We are now the trusted partner of the government. Our Q3 results had no impact of that agreement. That MOU is meant to come into effect in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and it will be part of what we do in the future. We've always developed government of balance projects where we export our development management capability to them. This has been the largest mandate ever that they've given us as a trust. Some people asked us, so are we converting into becoming a government developer? Absolutely not. We are a private developer. We have public shareholders. We're there to create value for them, but we also have a very strategic relationship with our government that wants us as the private sector to develop projects on their behalf in a more cost-effective way, in a faster way, in a much more sustainable way, whilst generating returns for our shareholders. So that's just going to be another strong pillar, but that's not going to take our eyes off the ball in terms of growing our development management and our REIT business.
Before I turn to Mr. Sajwani Talal, tell me, there's a question from the audience, how is Alda differentiating between Yas Island, Saria Island, and Al Raha Beach at the moment? Any change in those differentiations?
So, we believe in key destinations. We develop not only those 3, but we're the main developer on Reem Island and in others. Now, with each island, we do want to create certain placemaking capabilities. So Reem Island is the natural extension to the financial district on Al Maria Island, the Abu Dhabi global market, the DIFC equivalent in Abu Dhabi. Saadiyat is all built around the culture, where we have the amazing beaches, we have the Louvre, the Guggenheim Museum that are under construction, some amazing resorts, the Abrahamic site. Yas is about the entertainment with projects like Warner Brothers, Ferrari World, the water park, and SeaWorld. And then you have Al Raha Beach, that's a waterfront destination in quite a strategic area as the gateway to Abu Dhabi. Now, whilst each one of those have a particular focus and a heart that we build around with very strong infrastructure around them, we also make sure in each one of those that they don't only hit a certain price point. So while Saadiyat has an average price point that's higher than Yas, we make sure that on Saadiyat, we build low income, mid income, upper mid, and premium projects on each one. So there is some overlap between those communities, but it's very important when you build one of these destinations that it's done in a sustainable way and that you cater for each segment of that pyramid and that triangle and make sure that we hit. And for us as the developer, we've been swapping from mid-income to premium to waterfront in each one of those destinations and extracting value. And I'd love to share more details with anyone on the call that would like to take that with us offline and understand more about our up and coming destinations.
Happy to do so. Thank you. We can connect anyone on the call or who's seeing the video with our panelists today. Mr. Sajwani, if I may, let's turn to you for a moment. I'm going to ask you this sort of the same question that I asked Talal at the beginning, but I want to throw in there, a little bit of a flavor of some things we're getting from the audience. One audience member says that the COVID-19 saved Dubai's real estate market by forcing these corrections in oversupply, easing the oversupply, if you will. And another viewer is asking maybe for you to shed a little bit more light on how you see the commercial real estate sector in Dubai at the moment, what the trend lines are, because from his or her perspective, it's an anonymous attendee, the sector is still being hit quite hard, which I think you alluded to, sir. So please, over to you.
Thank you. Office space, we're in a oversupply, and interesting, I've been for a long time oversupply, and rent went as low as $10 per square feet, which I found ridiculous, because today, if you want to build an office space, leave the high quality. If you want to build mediocre quality, will cost you at least $200 to $250 per square feet between land and construction, and this is not high quality. So, $10 is like, you're making less than 3% on your money. I think post-COVID, things gonna get worse, I don't see a huge drop in the occupancy of the office space, but I don't see the demand. And I see a lot of businesses in Dubai going to struggle and suffer next year. I'm very frank because of COVID. Take an example, restaurants. A lot of them closed down. More will be closing down. You go to the shopping mall, you see number of shops are closing down. Of course, this has impact also on the offices because all those companies have some space in the offices. So I am very, very negative on the office space.
Okay.
In Dubai, in the retail, we're going to have, basically 2 malls going to do well or reasonably well, Dubai Mall and Mall of Emirates. And we all know the others have been already struggling prior to COVID and going to struggle more. I mean, we should not underestimate the subject of e-commerce. It's a major, major drive. I give you a very simple example. My wife, always used to shop, go to the shop, while my daughter was shopping on e-commerce from university days. And during COVID, my wife get used to now shopping on e-commerce. Now she doesn't want to go to the mall. Same thing she does like my daughter used to do. We'll go to the shop, we'll look around, we'll not buy it, come home and order it. And I said, why are you doing this? She said, in the shop, I get a 5 to 10 minutes chance to try the dress. And then I have the decision. They send it home to me. She keep it for a day and a half. She show it to me, to her friends, to her daughter, try it. She get a whole 1.5 day to make up her mind, or 2 days, So the e-commerce is going to hit the retail in a very strong way, very strong way. We are at the beginning of that, not at the end of that, Other sectors of the property, as I said, I've been very frank. I don't see we're going to see major upside in the business or in the prices. Demand is coming up, prices are stabilizing, and it's an excellent market for the buyers. They're getting good payment terms, they're getting literally prices below replacement cost, and that will continue at least for another 18 months. I am very, very positive on Expo. Expo going to really push Dubai economy and forward. A lot of people are going to come, and when they're going to see Dubai, they're going to see what they're missing, and they're going to come back again, either as tourism or as investor or whatever other reason. So I am quite bullish on the tourism in 22, end of 21 and 22. And I think hotels will start. Again, Dubai is always going to remain very competitive markets. So the rates are going to go up, but you're going to see good occupancy and the rate's going to stabilize.
Mr. Hussein, thank you for touching on shopping and your wife in that regard. I remember sitting with her a year ago when we could still see each other face to face, and she told me, she was giving me advice on where to get some of the best buys. But now I understand she's going to probably be giving me advice on where to get those best buys on the internet. So that's a change again in 2020 that we've all gone through. Sir, I wanted to ask you about Expo, but before we go to Expo, I want to ask you about Damac and how it's building on its exceptional record in this post-COVID era to provide even better service to clients. You also, I believe, have had an incredible increase in your share price in the last few weeks or month. And I think those two must go hand in hand. So can you talk about how your share price has gone up, and can you say a few words about your record in delivery in service to your clients?
We spend a lot of effort and time in on technology in the last couple of years, and we're getting the fruits of that now. And we did an application for the customers to be on the app, and they can do a lot of their services in the app. On the share price, I cannot comment, but as I said earlier, there are no profits. They barely break even, if not lower than that. Going forward, we're not going to make money because we're selling our product at almost cost. The margin is zero. Why the share price is going up? You need to ask the guy who's buying them at this price, because I don't see the logic in that, honestly. I mean, I'm happy on one end that is going up, but honestly, I'm not gonna come here and brag about it and say it makes sense. No, unfortunately, in a lot of markets in US, here, everywhere in the world, there is a lot of speculators, a lot of day traders, and they look at the stock, which is the denominator is small, so they like 1 dirham stock versus 5 dirham stock, but that got nothing to do with with the company. They need. I advise people to read balance sheet, to read the balance sheet of the company before they make a decision.
Thank you, sir. As we pivot to His Excellency Marwan, I want to use the issue of Expo 2020, or maybe a better word, the opportunity of Expo 2020, as a way to transition from Dubai and into Sharjah. Mr. Sejwani, you introduced the idea of Expo. Say a few words about what that's going to mean for the end of 2020 in the broader UAE, not just Dubai, but in the UAE, in the region, and also into 2021. And also keeping in mind that this is the UAE's golden jubilee coming up in December of 2021, 50 years as a country. Sir, please.
I mean, Expo is a global, international, trade affair. I think in one way, Dubai was unlucky that we missed it last year. But on the other end, I think we were lucky. Dubai government got an extra year to plan it or to build it or to come up with much better product. I think I visited the site last year where it was just ready to be, finished. And I think they've done a marvelous job. They've done a great job. I think it's going to be one of the unique expos around the world. And for me, Expo is going to be there for 6 months. People are going to come. People are going to enjoy those pavilions, going to be a lot of activity. But most importantly, people are going to discover, a lot of people are going to discover that jewel called Dubai. With, you travel down around the world. The safety you get in Dubai, you can keep your house almost unlocked. You can keep your car unlocked. Where you go to London nowadays, you can wear an expensive watch. You can drive an expensive car. Same thing in a lot of cities in the world. So the safety, the beautiful beaches, the restaurants, the hotels, and the infrastructure that Dubai has, and the opportunity to provide, I think a lot of people. I'm going to give you an example. 1.2, 1.3 billion Chinese. How many of them visited Dubai? Not a fraction. If we see another 10 million Chinese come to Dubai, they will come back again and again and again and again. 100 million Japanese. How many of them came to Dubai? Not very many. And you count on that basis. I'm very, very positive and very excited about Expo.
Thank you, sir. Very, very much appreciated. I want to turn Marwan to you and give you the floor with a few questions. Maybe just pivoting on what Mr. Sejwani said about Expo. Expo is also going to be a driver for Sharjah, as it is for Abu Dhabi, of course, as well. But Sharjah is right there, right next to Dubai. Can you say a few words about how Sharjah is thinking about the opportunity of Expo 2020?
Yeah, I think having an expo is definitely a benefit to the whole United Arab Emirates. It's going to get us the highest number of tourists that we have ever expected. Like the numbers that they were targeting was 25 million. And as we see, vaccine has started in the United Arab Emirates officially. So that means that people are easier to travel, easier to explore, and many of whoever is traveling to the United Arab Emirates, Emirates Airline, and Fly Dubai, and Air Arabia and Etihad has created a program where everyone is actually covered, which makes traveling to the United Arab Emirates something not an issue as a lot of other countries, I would say. Dubai Expo is going to not only showcase Dubai to the world, but showcase the United Arab Emirates. And what what is nice, as I said, and every emirate has something different. So as they visit the United Arab Emirates and Dubai to explore the different pavilions here, they might explore the other museums that we have within Sharjah and Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Ajman and all of the other Emirates. They would also experience the archaeological sites that we have within the United Arab Emirates. And what's nice about the UAE is traveling within the 7 Emirates is not an issue. The maximum you would travel is maybe 2 hours by car or 3 hours by car, and that's usually is not really an issue traveling around the Emirates. And I think this is one of the benefits of the UAE. You can go from one waterfront in the Arabian Gulf to the Indian Ocean within an hour drive between Sharjah to Khorfakan on the east coast. And I think this by itself is an advantage for anyone traveling to the United Arab Emirates. And as I said, it comes up with an event that is international. So as I've been to Shanghai for the first time for the Expo Shanghai, and then after that to Milan Expo, I saw how the number of tourists coming from all around the world exploring not only that expo, but exploring the cities around it. And I think that is the biggest advantage of having an international event within the United Arab Emirates, and especially here in Dubai. And because we have 4 international carriers, I think this is by itself is a huge benefit to us.
Thank you, Marwan. Say a few words, if you would, about the impact of the UAE central bank changes on the real estate market and Sharjah's changes for financial investment in the real estate market.
So what we heard since the pandemic, more than 120 billion from the central bank was supported to actually support the banking sector, but also the developers. So what we noticed that every emirate has created a program to support, whether it's developers. Sorry, that's my daughter here. So it's supporting developers, medium-sized businesses, small-sized businesses, entrepreneurs, and I think this created a good impact on banks to support whoever that is required investment. And I think what we notice is that how each emirate tried to also support its economy. So in Sharjah, we created a lot of incentives, whether it's on the ports, whether it's the economic department, whether it's the Sharjah municipality. Every department created an incentive program to support its economy. And that's where we stand as government with the developers, with everyone here within the economy to make them not fall. And the problem of the issue is that if one falls, everyone falls after them, and that's the good thing. The other thing that we notice is that having an e-government that is well prepared and ready was one of the advantages of the UAE. Whether it's the government sector or the private sector or the education sector, we saw everything going very smoothly, and this is one of the advantages that UAE have invested a lot on creating an e-government and then creating a smart government. And that's why today the UAE is one of the countries that managed to overcome this pandemic in a smart way, I would say.
Thank you, sir. What are you doing to attract more FDI into the real estate market in Sharjah? And what potential opportunities do you see for American companies in this post-pandemic era? Just a quick word or two, if you don't mind.
Yeah, what is nice about Sharjah, to a lot of people, maybe Sharjah is the central of the United Arab Emirates, and it's the emirate that has 7 different cities in within. So in the west coast, you have Sharjah and Al-Hamriya, and there is a couple of developments that are happening there. But in the central coast, there not a lot of development when it comes to real estate, and that is the area called Al-Zaid or Mleha or Al-Madam. And then you have the east coast where you have Khorfakan and Kalba and Dibba. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create opportunities in every part of Sharjah's emirate, and trying to create incentives where developers can actually co-invest with government sectors such as Shuruk or such as Sharjah Asset Management to develop real estate developments. And in a lot of the other cities within Sharjah, the supply is very low and the demand is very high, and that's what we're trying to basically navigate investments into different sectors, and especially in the real estate sector, into different cities. So now there is a huge demand on Khorfakan as a city, on Kalba as a city, because they sit on the east coast, and there isn't one developer that's actually developing other than Shuruk. And we encourage developers to come and invest more of a holiday home, but also the economy in those cities is actually booming since the pandemic have hit the UAE or the world, I would say.
For all of my panelists, we had Ambassador Alateba on our webinar yesterday, and Sultan Al Jaber speaking about for our board of directors meeting, speaking a little bit about the historic impact of the Abraham Accords. You have a number of Israeli tourists coming already. I've read reports in the UAE press about how all of the hotels are getting ready for Passover in the spring, to have kosher meals, for just an onslaught of Israeli tourists coming to see the UAE for the first time. You spoke about tourists from China, Mr. Sejwani. Talk a little bit, each one of you, if you would say a word about the impact of the Abraham Accords and the opening up of business for investments from Israel and the UAE, and from the UAE, investments into Israel in this broader real estate sector. Talal, do you want to go first?
I think the UAE has always been a beacon of peace and has always fostered the strongest relations, and we've seen quite a quick pickup in the economic tie-ups that are there. The hotels have started, as you said, Danny, to prepare for that. We've started to see the first flights, both from the UAE and from Israel. I think it'll be interesting to see in the next period as we go through the holiday season, and people's appetite to travel as COVID restrictions are being lifted. I think this is just the start. I think investors in both the UAE and Israel invest a lot in real estate as an asset class that I think they've invested in for quite a while. So there'll definitely be opportunities, I think, potentially even beyond the hospitality sector, particularly also on the technology sector as well, prop tech, which is a key area of focus for us.
Mr. Sejwani, you want to comment on the impact of the Abraham Accords on business?
As you appreciate, Dubai today is a global city. We at DAMAC have more than 104 nationalities, our buyers. So Dubai always will benefit from, as I said earlier, for any peace or any crisis in the region or globally. So I am sure the property market will benefit from that angle. On the tourism, I don't own hotels. I am not in that sector, so I cannot comment on that. I don't have any numbers on that.
I got it, sir. Thank you. And Marwan, a comment on Abraham Accords?
Yeah, I think what we've seen is a high number of delegations coming all the way from Israel to the United Arab Emirates, visiting, getting to know what are the opportunities in the United Arab Emirates. We're actually having a meeting very soon also with a delegation. I've seen personally on a personal level, a couple of Israelis touring around Dubai at City Walk. I've seen them coming to Mleha, as I said, in the middle of the desert, an archaeological destination. So I believe we will be seeing a lot of tourists coming from Israel. Maybe not currently investing in real estate, I would say, maybe in the future, yes, but I think the biggest impact will be on the tourism sector and on investment opportunities for developers from the UAE. As we see a lot of companies coming from Israel looking for opportunities here, I think we'll be seeing delegations flying out from the United Arab Emirates all the way to Tel Aviv to see what are the opportunities that are available for our developers. Companies like BIA, for example, might be interested. Companies like Gulf Tainer, Tiffany, they all might be looking for opportunities out there as they've been very successful getting out of the UAE and exploring opportunities out of the United Arab Emirates.
So we have a few questions from the audience about where they can get more information on the UAE real estate sectors and markets. Rami Rabaya is a good friend from New York City who's a real estate broker there, and he just wants to know where do you access information? And I would say to him, at aldar.com, at sharuk.com, and at damac.com, it's a great place to start. to learning more about the markets and the verticals in the real estate sector in the UAE today. Gentlemen, I like to keep these sessions to 1 hour. We have about 3 or 4 minutes left. Can I ask each of you if you have a concluding remark you'd like to make? And I'm going to start with Mr. Sajwani and then go to Marwan, and we'll end with Talal, if that's okay. Anything you'd like to say in conclusion, Mr. Sajwani?
Yeah, what I like to say that the biggest lesson I've learned in my life was in 08, 09, when the crisis hit the world and the property market, especially in Dubai. And I always thought at one time, you know, in such a difficult time, how you survive. And alhamdulillah, and thank God, that taught me a very good lesson. And I think today, Damak as a company survived this COVID, being one of the probably, again, few private company who survived this crisis, you know, in the region, due to the tough time we had in 09, 08. I think keeping eye very close to the business, on the cash flow, on the market, is very, very important for all of us. And as I said, I hope 22, I don't think 21, but I hope 22 brings better results for the property companies.
Being resilient, being flexible, Mr. Sajwani, I think are hallmarks of the way you've led the business at Damak over the years. Marwan, a concluding remark?
Yeah, I would like to say what we've seen is how the United Arab Emirates has been very dynamic in moving so fast and assuring everyone. A message that I heard from Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, was a very good message that was sent. Don't worry, we're going to take care of it. And that created a great assurance to everyone, whether you're a household owner, whether you're a businessman, whether you're a developer, that things are going to be under our control and we're going to get over it, but just wait and listen to what we are telling you. And I think that message created a great impact on everyone. I've heard many people moving in the United Arab Emirates more than ever due to the fact that UAE created a great system. And I think this was one of the points that made the UAE one of the creative cities in managing this pandemic. So the business is going to come back better than ever. 2021, I think, will have a great rebound for the United Arab Emirates economy. And I believe we have a great government that is close to the people and close to business.
Your Excellency, thank you for those remarks. We know that the focus is going to be obviously in what you're doing at home in Sharjah in 2021, but we are very much looking forward to your next visit to the US and doing a delegation visit to a couple states in the United States. So looking forward to planning that with you and your team.
Thank you.
Talal, can I give you the last word, please, sir, Your Excellency from Abu Dhabi?
Thank you. I mean, I just want to, end by stressing on how important the alliance is between the UAE and the US at the political level, at the economic level. We welcome this. We would have wished, if it was down to Danny, that this was in person rather than virtual, and we can see and have much better discussions pre and post. So I invite you all to please reach out when you do come. Please go to our website, but come and visit us. Let's have virtual discussions for now, but meet in person, discuss, share ideas. We will overcome COVID, and COVID is going to be something of the past. We're all here to plan for the future. We remain optimistic of what we can do together. As a company, we're going to continue to foster those relationships, invest in our people, in our customers, and sustainability. And we look forward to doing that jointly with new partners as a result of this great event, which I thank you all for inviting me to speak at. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, Danny, for organizing it.
Gentlemen, thank you so very, very much for joining us for today's session, for what was very, very interesting and informative. We have some questions that weren't answered. We're going to try to get those copied and get answers to those folks. But again, there's a lot of interest in this, and we're going to be pushing some of these folks your way for follow-up with your teams as appropriate, so that people can learn even more information about the opportunities in the real estate verticals in your Emirates. We look forward to involving you all in our programming for 2021. As I said, this is the end of our programming for 2020. So let me wish you a belated UAE Happy National Day, a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll get those all in, and hopefully we can have a little bit of a break here at the end of the year and get some rest. Welcome, thank you. Have a wonderful evening to my friends and colleagues in the UAE. Take care now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.